Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new edition of Message of Hope. And today I'm very happy to be with Mavis Karn, who is a longtime teacher of the three principles, a mentor of many of us in the 3P community, and the queen also of deep listening. And so welcome, Mavis.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I'm very happy that you agreed to come play with me today.
Yeah.
And I will ask you the infamous question: is that how does having this understanding, how does that help you with any kind of events or situation in your life? Could be COVID, lockdown, or whatever else that shows up in your life.
Well, it's kind of like if you know how anything works, it's really helpful. Like if you know how your car works, it makes it a lot easier to drive it. If you know how to lace your shoes, that's very helpful. If you know how your stove works, it makes it a useful tool. But when you know how well you're made, that covers everything. It's I think people, if they really understood how perfectly they're made, it would change their life from that moment on. They would begin to see that nothing was left out of the engineering that went into them. Nothing. They have built into them everything they need. And they will then begin to notice when they're using their thinking in a way that's not in service to them. They will begin to notice that their senses, all of their senses, are on their side. They're not annoyances. They're not things to irritate us. They're information. And they're letting us know how we're operating at the moment. For instance, something as simple as your hand. It is a very complex, amazing instrument. And people keep trying to make a robotic hand that simulates a human hand. And they've done some wonderful things with it. They're never going to get the perfect robotic hand. But we can take our hand and we can make a fist and we can punch ourselves, punch somebody else, pound, or we can walk around like this. But even if we just walk around like this, it creates a lot of eventual discomfort, tightness, inability to use it for other things. If your hand is relaxed and open, what can you use it for? Pretty much everything. Dress yourself, feed yourself, make things, hold things, pet kittens, play instruments, sign language. It's just endlessly useful. Who's operating it? Your hand doesn't go off and get into trouble all by itself. So you are in charge of how you use it. And you can tell by how it feels how you're using it. Same with this. That we are given the gift of thought so that we can live our own version of life. And everybody's version of life is different from everybody else's. But our senses are again at play, letting us know the quality of the experience we're creating with our thinking. That is so handy. And for the first years of my life, I didn't know that. I had no idea. I pretty much believed everything that came into my head. And there's nobody that can stay out of trouble doing that. So when I first learned the principles, which is, I don't know, somewhere between 40 and 45 years ago now, I really thought the top of my head was going to come off. It was at a workshop that 3 PhD psychologists who had been spending time with a man named Sid Banks did a weekend workshop that I went to, not because I wanted to go to it, but because my boss wanted to go and he couldn't and sent me. Great. I had no idea what I was getting into. But when I heard that it's all our thinking, I knew that was true. I knew it. And it was like somebody took, like when you scramble eggs, it's like somebody did that with my brain and went, yeah, but what? But in the end, no matter what argument I threw at it, I couldn't disprove it. That we are the creators of our experience, of our existence. And once you get a hold of that and you see it, you start seeing that every sense you have is on your side, including your emotions. And you feel them physically. We experience all of our thoughts physically. I'm fond of saying you can't sneak a thought by your body. You just can't. You may not notice it, but you experience it there. And once you start even getting a hint of how well you're made, you start trusting a deeper self. Not the personal memory self, not the habit self. You start trusting that deeper, but constantly available wisdom and common sense, that clear space where whatever you need occurs to you. The timing's right, the information, but it can seem ordinary. It can seem just simple. But us human beings are fond of thinking unless something's complicated, it's not worthwhile.
Yeah.
And my take was that too, until I saw no matter how intricate creation is, it's simple. It's simple. So there's like 2 questions. How do you feel? How do you want to feel?
You have an example in your life, how it made a difference?
Yep, just recently. Great. At least I thought it was great. A week ago today, I was on Zoom with a friend of mine in Germany who it was just a wonderful conversation. He just had some really good family news, and all of a sudden I noticed my right hand got really heavy. And I have no other word to describe it. It was heavy. And then my head got heavy. And I said to him, just a minute, I have to be quiet. Something's happening. And so I just sat there and just waited. 2, 3, 4 minutes, I don't know how long it was. And the sensations just dissipated, they went away. And then we just continued with our talk. But I put that information over here. And after the talk, it happened again.
Mm.
And I remembered some weeks ago that I had been reading about the magical design of the brain. I just like reading how well we're made. And the writer said something about TIAs, little tiny mini strokes. And he said, a lot of people have them, but they just blow them off. And he said, what we should do is get to an emergency room fast. And I remembered that. And I had my daughter call emergency and send an ambulance while I got some stuff together. Went down to the emergency room, got an MRI, a CAT scan, and all, everything that they can do to look inside you. They found absolutely nothing wrong. No evidence that there ever had been anything wrong. Right? Healthy heart, healthy lungs, healthy brain, right? But something had happened. So my blood pressure had soared, and long story short, they eventually just put me on some blood thinners and stuff like that, which is great. So I am now an official old woman with meds. I am 82, so that part's true. I'm just not used to taking meds. But here's the thing. I didn't notice until I got home that I hadn't been scared through all of it. I hadn't been scared. In fact, I found it really interesting. And the hospital staff was really remarkably good at answering all my curiosities. I'm just incurably curious. And so they answered all my questions. I learned a lot. The people were wonderful. And some of the stuff was even funny. I laughed a lot. I enjoyed meeting people. Now that seems ordinary, but it's amazing. And the reason I wasn't afraid is that wasn't interested in it. I just, for whatever reason, didn't frighten myself. Now that wasn't a whole lot different than how I spend the rest of my time. I have lost interest completely in the habit of catastrophizing about the future, about reliving the past, about judgment, just frightening myself about anything. I have lost interest in it because I know it's optional. And I didn't used to know that. I thought everything that was going on out there was in charge of what was going on in here. So naturally, I was reactive all the time. But it's been a long time since I've spent very much time being reactive from habit. Even though those thoughts still come into my head, it's just, I don't give them attention like I used to. I don't make them important. I don't hold a magnifying glass up to my least productive thinking. I do it once in a while, and that's about all. It just sticks out like a sore thumb. I can't tolerate very much self-induced suffering. Now that's not because I'm some kind of superhuman. I'm not. I'm just an ordinary person that got the owner's manual. And everybody is capable of that. Everybody. There are no exceptions. So everything in my life is an example of how it's different because I know how I'm made. there were all kinds of things in my life that I thought caused anxiety and regret and depression and embarrassment and, you know, all of the things that are not so much fun to feel. Like everybody else, but I can't tell you how helpful it is to know I'm the boss. I get to decide what I'm going to take too seriously or not. I get to decide my state of mind. And sometimes I forget that, but not for long. And I don't care that I forgot it. I know that I just forgot it. And I'll be sane again in a minute.
Yeah, and it's normal sometimes to get cut. Sometimes we forget. We forget sometimes, no?
Yeah,
And
not
as
for
long
long.
as we don't judge ourselves for having forgotten one day.
Exactly. I used to be really good at giving myself shame sermons. What's the matter with you? You should know better. Da, da, da. I would never talk to somebody else like that. Isn't that amazing? That, you know, we have, at least I do, and I'm sure you do. You see the innocence in people all the time, and you see people are doing the best they know to do, given what they understand is possible. And if they're making mistakes or behaving badly, you probably don't yell at them and shame them and tell them they're a rotten person and what's the matter with them and all that. Save it for yourself. But, you know, one of the things about letting go of that habit is that you got a lot of extra time where you can enjoy your life. You don't have to be feeling bad about yourself.
And that's the thing now, enjoy life, because life is to be enjoyed.
Yeah. But the thing is, people, including me, kind of believe that joy came from outside. So something had to happen out there for me to feel joy. And joy means to infuse with joy. Joy is something you bring to it. You don't get it out of something. Does that make sense?
Mm.
It's like, I didn't know that. So hence, I can have the medical experience that I had, and to a certain degree, bring joy to it, even if sometimes it was just neutrality. What it wasn't was terrifying. It wasn't that. It isn't that I haven't forgotten how to do that. I know how to terrify myself. I spent a lot of time practicing that because that's the best I knew. But if I had any advice for people, I would say, learn how well you're made. You'd be amazed. Just like right now, you and I are looking at each other on the screen. If we look that way, we just change the aperture and the lens of our eye with intention. With intention. Who made that up? What an amazing invention that is. You just intend to see something over there and you change the lens and the aperture of your eye. It's amazing. You can go to the refrigerator and take something out and smell it. It'll pretty much tell you whether you should eat it or not. Wow. That's helpful.
And sometimes we can even, that's a little fun experiment. No, you make believe that you take the lemon and you feel the lemon, you cut the lemon, you can smell the lemon, you can even taste the lemon. The lemon doesn't even exist.
That's right. That is a great app. We get so impressed with our phones and all the technology. It pales in comparison to how we're made. And we should really have respect for that. We don't need remodeling, fixing. We're not broken, but we can prove we are. Isn't that interesting? We can prove it.
Yeah.
Like the way that I used to work is to find out what's wrong with people and diagnose them. And they would tell me what's wrong with them. Well, I'm not enough this and this and this and this and this and this. And this. Oh, you have whatever, the diagnosis.
Mm.
And they were so relieved. No, now they know what's wrong with them. It had a name. It isn't anything wrong. It's amazing how we can prove something that isn't true. Like that the world is flat. There are some people that still believe that.
Or they take the label and they think it's them.
Yeah. Yeah. I am an alcoholic. I am an addict. I am a manic depressive. I am a schizophrenic. I am da-da-da. You are a human being that thinks and sometimes doesn't realize that and doesn't know when to trust their thinking and when not to. Don't know how you're made. It's like driving a car and not knowing about the brakes. So you've got all these ways of stopping. Drag your foot, or you throw an anchor out, or you run into a tree or something because you didn't know about the brakes. And they were right there all the time. We're absolutely magnificent creatures, and we're also very funny when we don't know something that's right under our nose. I remember when I first heard about how our human experience is created, I thought it just can't be that simple. I would have seen, I'm not stupid. I would have seen that. No, that's why I didn't see it, because it's so simple.
And we also train, in seeing it the wrong way, in a sense, even very young. Oh, you're sad. Oh, who made you sad? No, or what made you angry, or whatever. No, or here's a cookie to go with it. Yeah, so we're
Sugar.
trained.
Yeah. We are. By anybody that's trying to make life difficult for us. People are passing on the best they know, but sometimes the best they know is just god awful. And if you don't know that sometimes your brain is lying to you, in fact, there's a book called that, Your Brain is Lying to You. But it's not malicious, it's just telling you what got put in it.
Mm.
But your emotions are there to let you know when to trust your thinking and when not to. So everything's covered. But if you don't know that, you keep thinking the same way, you keep acting on that thinking in the same way, you keep suffering the outcomes of acting on that the same way, and you never see, oh my God, it all just started with following thinking that was not in service to me. And there's a way to know that. It's called a feeling. My favorite question to ask anybody in my work is, when's the last time you felt the way you wish you could feel all the time?
Mm.
It's a wonderful question because people will start talking about something that happened and they just felt lighthearted and full love and wonder or compassion or humor or something. And I will ask them, what do they make of that they felt that way? And they will tell me it was because this was happening, or this is where they were, or this is who they were with, or whatever. And so I will then ask them, what if that's not why? What if other people in that same situation with the same people, same thing going on, weren't feeling that way? What do you make of that? That's where they get stuck, which is a good thing, because the reason they felt the way they felt was because they were, for whatever piece of time, living in their true self. They were being who they are. And it was so unfamiliar to them, they had a hard time believing that's who they were. Their habits were much more familiar, so they think that was who they really are. They just, in fact, people describe themselves in terms of their habits. Well, I'm a type A. Well, I'm very sensitive, like my feelings get hurt really easily. Well, I'm this and that. And that's not who anybody is. It's just habit. Isn't it interesting that we would be the most familiar with who we aren't and the least familiar with who we are?
Yeah.
But my job is to have people consider turning that around and starting to trust.
So our job is like, let's say this was a lamp and it's all covered up. Our job is just to uncover what is not true.
Mm-hmm.
So the light
Well,
shines.
it's not my job to do that. It's my job to teach other people how to do that.
Yeah, even better. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not my job to clear anybody's head. It's my job, if people are interested. If they're not interested, I don't have a job with them. But if they're interested, to learn how to let go of all the nonsense, all the junk mail that comes in, and entertain the notion that the clearer their head, the more truly they're being themselves. But I can't do that for anyone.
No.
Go ahead.
True.
Mm-hmm.
We point them in the right direction.
I can't even make them follow that.
True.
It's kind of makes it easy to keep doing my work at my age, because I know I can't change anyone. That's not me. And I only have one state of mind that I can do anything about. It's mine. That really cuts out a whole bunch of extraneous work that my job is first of all to take care of my own state of mind, to just live from who I really am as often as I can and show up and pass this information on to people that, if they're interested, so that they can do the same thing.
And on that, I'll thank you very much, Mavis, for your time and for your wisdom. And if people want to find you or work with you, how can they find you?
You can just track me down on my email, which is connectwithmaviskarn@gmail.com.
Well, thank you. And I'm very glad that you're fine, that you're
I'm fine
healthy.
too. Thank you.
And hopefully you'll stay that way for many years.
That's my plan. But, God knows, make a plan and God laughs.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Take good care.